What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, we got to talk about the Death Stranding 2 previews that have hit the internet today. To summarize, it is massive. It is a big deal. It is insanely good. Look, a lot of people just talking extremely positively, about this game. The MGS2 moment, which we'll talk about in a second, the kind of jump from the first game to the second game, and potentially another Hideo Kojima masterpiece. Some people are saying maybe they're his best game, of all time. You got Jeff Keighley chiming in, all this jazz. So what I want to do in this video, there's so much to talk about, and there's so much that they said, and they got to play a massive freaking chunk of this game, almost unheard of. I want to just kind of talk about the 5 things that jumped out at me. Story is not even really going to be a part of this, so I'm kind of, excluding things just to kind of focus on some of the stuff that jumped out, from these previews. But, pick your website, pick your creator, and see what they have to say about it as well as me. Okay, so let's jump in. Number 1, I want to just talk about that length because, look, you could talk about the length of the game. That's something we have to say. And then also, let me start with just the confidence that it takes to show off. Ready for this if you haven't seen it? 30 hours of the game. These people were flown in, went to Hideo's headquarters out there, right, in Japan, and played this game over 4 days for 30 hours. They were doing freaking full work days that maybe the average Joe would have to do. These people were doing it and playing Death Stranding too. 30 hours from a confidence perspective, I feel like, is enormous. Most times in previews, now I have very limited experience in previews, but of course I cover it all the time. We're always talking about what other people are saying when they get invited out to things. They get 2 hours. They get 4 hours if you're lucky, right? There's a cap. They'll get to play for so long. You have kind of segments that you're able to play. These people played I think it's the first. I don't even think they were jumping around. I'm pretty sure they literally played just the first 30 hours of this game, which is unreal. Unfreaking real because, you could say, well, how much of that game is it? Well, that's kind of part 2 to it, isn't it? That they say that 30 hours, or actually Hideo Kojima says, is roughly 40% of the entire game. So this is a game, you literally do the math. Like, it's over 70 hours. It might be pushing 80, 85. Now, I have said before that, creators and, the, publishers, developers, they oftentimes lie. They over-exaggerate or they kind of estimate the length of their game. Here's the issue with my own, let me play devil's advocate against myself. Normally, I would say, okay, he's just, sometimes they just say that. Sometimes they say it and it's 10, 15 hours less, right? If they say it's 100 hours, maybe it's 85. It's within a range. The thing with this, though, is they got to play 30 hours. So it's I kind of believe him just flat out at his word. If they played 30, then yeah, the game's at least 60, right? It's probably pushing more than 60, which the first game was 40, 45. So this is, and depending on how far you go, this could be double the first game. Now, that might raise some concerns, of course. And I don't actually think I even wrote this down on my list, but let me throw it in here. There's a lot of people talking about just the pacing and everything is just better. And we'll actually get to that in terms of some of the gameplay mechanics, but I just want to throw that in because, length or, being bigger does not always mean it's better, right? Being 80 hours versus 40 doesn't mean Death Stranding 2 is double as good as the first game. But I did see a lot of people saying just the pacing in general is better. Everything feels better, but it's just speedier. You get into it quicker, and then just the minute-to-minute tasks, it's just got a better pace to it. So not only has this madman doubled the length of his last game, let people play almost half of it, which is an enormous amount. It's not like it's a 4-hour game and people play 2 hours, but also it's still better, because the pacing is still better just overall in general. So kind of want to throw that out because that's just mind-blowing to me. You never get people that are able to play 30 hours of a game. The one weakness I would say to these people, and I don't think any of them have a problem with it, they probably shouldn't, I think they're going to have to do it again, right? Because when they get the review codes and all that stuff, the preview progress will not transfer over. So those first 30 hours, they're going to have to do that again, in just a few months. So let's go kind of in chronological order there from the length, talk about the amount of time they played it. One thing that stood out, and I think SkillUp's quote has really, popped off online, but it's not just him. I read, I think Video Games Chronicle said the same thing. So the opening, now I have not seen it. One thing I should maybe say, and I know I'm saying it kind of far into the video, I've watched almost next to nothing, you know, in terms of what people have. I've read what people have said, but I haven't watched what people have said. So anything that you guys see in this video, I'm kind of like pulling out for the first time if it's new. But with that being said, the greatest opening, you know, of all time, kind of as the tagline, I'm seeing it over and over again. Now, again, the skill up thing is definitely the first thing I saw, and it's kind of what's popping off. But they do something, he does something in the beginning of this game that is like just one of the greatest openings to a video game that you've ever seen in your life. Now, again, like, this is where I'm glad I'm not watching it. I don't care to watch it, because if it's as good as people say, you know, honestly, Expedition 33 just came out. Honestly, one of the most heart-wrenching and I think just almost perfect openings that joins the ranks of like The Last of Us 1 and a couple others. Like, there's some really good openings in games. Not too many, but, you know, when games do it, they do it well. This game, man, if it has something special, we'll see what it... Well, I want to know what it is, but I also don't, because I kind of want to see it when the game comes out. But that's just something that is like a bullet point. A lot of people are saying it. The first opening sequence of this game, whatever it might be, is mind-blowing. So that's exciting. Okay, let's go into that Metal Gear Solid 2 kind of jump. Now, this kind of, I mean, points 3 and 4 for me in this video are going to kind of relate. So the jump between 1 and 2. Now, specifically, when people are bringing up Metal Gear Solid 2, again, there's some really good interviews, I think, with Hideo Kojima today. So I think what I've seen the comparison mainly being is the mechanics, right? So he talks a lot about how, like in Metal Gear Solid 1, he's teaching you something, and you might be frustrated by it, but he's teaching it to you, and he doesn't really care that you're frustrated, right? He wants you to learn, and he wants you to play it the way that, you know, he's creating it. If he did it a different way, it would almost be a different game. And then he talks about how, okay, in Metal Gear Solid 2, he trusts us. I love the way that this guy talks, because he kind of has this like cocky attitude, but he also deserves it because it's Kojima, right? But that's what, you know, these are the types of things that he's saying, right? Metal Gear Solid 1 is the foundation. It's a little rocky. It's teaching you how to play that style of game, and it's not going to work for everybody. People are going to be upset. It's just not, you know, it's not going to be perfect. But then in the second game, he trusts you as a player, and he opens up more avenues for you to do similar but improved things in the first game, or than the first game, okay? Now, why do I spend so much time saying it? That sounds exactly, from everything that I've seen, what people are saying about Death Stranding 2. Now, this, again, ties into, like, the next thing. Stealth. Stealth is better. Stealth is more readily there. Combat. Combat is massive in this game, but it's still optional. But from some people, it sounds like freaking Metal Gear Solid 6, right? Like, and I think I even saw interviews from Hideo where it's like some of his staff was actually concerned that he was going too into Metal Gear for Death Stranding. So, again, like, these things kind of piggyback, right? Everything has been improved. How you traverse, right? In the first game, it was clunky, but also like you're just learning. And him as a character, right? Norman Reedus there, you know, he's got to figure it out too. And now in this game, you're kind of a seasoned pro, right? You got better vehicles. The vehicles can do more. You can do more, which then expands everything else. Now there's environmental things, right? There's flooding. There's sandstorms. So again, I'm going to combine points 3 and 4 to me, but because they're very similar, right? And he said, like, he trusts you now. So just like in Metal Gear with Death Stranding, he wanted you to connect, right? The great old saying. He wanted you to get from point A to point B. He wanted you to avoid obstacles, avoid enemies, right? He wanted you to play it in a certain way, okay? There was still obviously a little bit of ways you could do in the first game, but he wanted you to play. It's a style, right? It's a style of game. It's a similar style here, but everything has been expanded, and so now you have, you know, a leeway to kind of do it your way, and then the way you pick has been expanded upon versus in the first game. And then kind of, I guess, even to piggyback off of that, right, that's some of the more gameplay mechanics. The story stuff, now I'm not even going to pretend to know, you know, what in God's name was happening in the first game, hence, again, I looked it up. I remember understanding the first game, and then it's been several years, so I completely forgot about it all. I want to remember it all. But an interesting, I guess, tidbit that I saw, again, a couple different times was it's kind of like more goofy. Like, and I mean, you see like that trailer with like Troy Baker's character like doing the guitar riff and all that stuff. And I mean, it just looks freaking rad, right? It just looks super sweet. But you know, it honestly, it kind of gives off that vibe where like it's just trying something else. It's almost a different tone. And you can see that, I would say, almost like hindsight being 2020. You can look back and say, yeah, it definitely looks like they're trying something a little bit different. And that's what these previews are saying too, right? Like amazing opening, and it's got like those Hideo Kojima like story moments, but it's definitely a different vibe. Like the story and the like the feeling of, I guess the tone is probably the right word, right? Like that definitely feels different now than it did in the first game. So, and that stands out to me too, right? Because when you think about the first game, you kind of have like a picture in your head of the type of seriousness and the way that the story was told, and to do something like so radically different potentially in this game is quite interesting as well, right? So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure as always you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.